Dr. Harry Cohen was just on with us, and we talked all about kindness and understanding other human beings and really interacting with the world in a very authentic and kind way. And so many of my questions came from, why is this so hard for us? Now, after I recorded this interview with Dr. Harry, my dog Remy and I went on a walk, and I was thinking about kindness and why it's so difficult for some people to not act in kindness. And some of those reasons I came up with were past experiences, trauma, unkind people they've encountered before, role models who acted in a way that weren't kind. And I thought about all of these things, and it's really easy when you've had some horrible life experiences or interacted with very unkind and just mean people in the world. It's very natural for you want to continue in that same direction of these people that you've encountered before. But then I was brought back to an interview actually on this podcast, episode 2 with Dr. Alexandra Solomon. And we were speaking about some of my past experiences. I was bullied in high school. I was in an abusive relationship in my early 20s. And as I'm talking to her about this, and I just say very passively, well, because of those experiences, now I'm a better person and I've learned and grown from those. And she looked at me very kindly, very soft-spoken, and just said, you didn't have to choose to be kind after those experiences. And I had never really thought about it in that capacity. I didn't have to choose after girls bullied me and said incredibly unkind things to me and made me feel so horrible that I was suicidal, or being in a relationship with a man who physically and emotionally abused me. After both of those experiences, I didn't have to choose to be kind to other people because of that. As a result of that, actually, a lot of people would have done the opposite. They would have chosen to continue that pattern. And when she said that to me, it really gave me a very big perspective on my choices as a human being. We all get to make our choices, and we all make mistakes because we are human, but those choices are ours to make. Just as it is my choice to have chosen the path of positivity and understanding that I don't want anybody to ever feel the way that I felt in either of those scenarios. And I didn't want to continue those patterns of behavior. I chose a different path. Just as somebody else who might have been in my position chose the path that was a little less difficult. And it was easier to just continue the path of being mean, to continue the pattern of abuse. So much of what I wanted to talk to Dr. Harry Cohen about is why people choose to be kind or choose not to be kind. And maybe in our lifetime, we're never going to have the actual answer of why some people choose a certain path versus some others don't, regardless of our past experiences. But I know that we as people have the power to make the right choices. We also have the power to make the wrong choices. And that's what this podcast is for. This episode is about having the strength to make the right choice. Now, I'm human. Just because I made the right choice in both of those scenarios and took the harder path doesn't mean I haven't made the wrong ones and I wasn't human. You should see me driving on a highway. I have horrible road rage. I hate when people are inconsiderate of others, and it bothers me to a T. And I've had to really inner look at myself and say, why am I getting so upset at these people? And take a step back and understand that other people are experiencing different life experiences, and I have to allow them to also be human. And that's where I struggle, because I'm not perfect. I have problems every day. I'm not somebody who's sitting here and going to say, just because I did it right these few times doesn't mean I have done it right every single time. But one thing that I do always boil down to is that I never want someone to encounter an experience with me and leave worse off for it. That's something that I've known to my core from who I was born to be as a human being when I was little, and how I interacted with the world. And as I grew up and I had these horrible experiences, something that always mattered to me is that I never wanted other people to walk away from an experience with me, whether that be a friendship, a relationship, an encounter just for 5 minutes, that it was bad, that they didn't want to be around me for the simple fact that I wasn't a good human. And that's why I say we all get to make choices and we all have a say in how we live our lives. These are my choices, just as you're going to have yours. And there are some things that I know for certain. While I am horrible with road rage and it's an active thing that I'm working on, you're never going to see me in a comment section on somebody's posts making comments that I can't take back or simply making a rude opinion for the sake of a like. You're not going to see me out into the world pushing somebody down in hopes that I'm lifted back up. My flaws are different than other people's. Those are flaws for some people. Those are flaws for a lot of, unfortunately, our society and the way that social media works. But it's been an active choice of mine not to be part of that. Just as for some people, they can actively choose not to have road rage and they have a lot of patience in the roads that they drive on. And while I was thinking about kindness, especially in regards to this interview with Dr. Harry, and I was on this walk with Remy, it was a whole walk. I'm telling you guys, this is the way that my brain works and the way that I interact with the world. And a lot of self-awareness that I have is just choosing to be on these walks and having these thoughts in my brain versus shutting everything down or shutting everything out. While I was thinking about kindness, I was walking past a bunch of different cars in the neighborhood, and there was a whole bunch of different licenses because I live in Nashville. We're kind of a melting pot, and all kinds of people move here. And I was seeing all these different state license plates, and all of them had different mottos. I remember seeing Virginia. That was the first one I saw. It was Virginia's for lovers. And then I kind of went down a rabbit hole of looking up a bunch of different state slogans to see what either they have on their license plate or what they stand for. And here's just a few of them. So New Hampshire, live free or die. Indiana, the crossroads of America. Alaska, north to the future. Oklahoma, hard work conquers all things. New York, Excelsior. Kansas, to the stars through adversity. Oregon, she flies with her own wings. Personal favorite of mine. Texas is friendship. New Mexico, it grows as it goes. California, Eureka, which apparently means I have found it. And Wisconsin, forward. Now, these are just a few of them, and if any of these are changed, I have no idea. This is just what Google says. But it had me then processing, what is my slogan? I look at all these state license plates, and this is what these states hope to show when people visit their state. This is what they hope our whole country and the world sees them as when they look at Kansas or Wisconsin or New Hampshire. These are their slogans. This is what they want to live by. This is what they want their people and their state to live by. So what is your slogan? What do you stand for? What do you hope that every time somebody encounters you in the world, what do you hope they all come away with? Your hope is that it's all the same thing, right? You hope that when you interact with the world, you have a consistency to you. You hope that when people come to you, it's always going to be a similar experience because you as a person would be consistent. That's the goal. Now, I'm not saying that's easy, and I'm not saying we're all at that place in our lives, but that is the goal. So I would imagine if we all came up with slogans or maybe a mantra for a way that you choose to live your life, the way that you believe you should be interacting with the world, I think it would help all of us, not only ourselves, but the way that we exist within the world. For me, as I was thinking about these slogans, something that I've always really focused on, especially since that situation in high school for me, being bullied and understanding that people do not have to interact with the world in the same ways I do, but that I had an influence, that I could change the way people interact with the world because of how I choose to interact with the world. So from that point forward, I really started to narrow down and take it from someone who's been in years of therapy. This was not easy. Who I am today and what I have become was never easy. It took a lot of pain. It took a lot of hard conversations and a lot of deep inner work to find who I am as a human being. So when I say, for me, these are the things that I try to focus on. These are the things that I hope maybe someday I can come up with a slogan to represent. These are years and years of work put into who I am as a human being. Something that I want to do is always focus on authenticity, being genuine, being compassionate, being strong, like a very strong human being physically and emotionally, being loyal to the people in my circle, being loyal to the people that I encounter. And newly, because of what you heard a compliment from a friend, was sunshine. These are all things that I hope to encompass when I interact with the world, not just the people in my circle, not just the people I say every single day, whether they be coworkers or strangers. This is how I choose as a human being that I want to interact with the world. Now, what is that slogan? What encompasses all of those things? I have no idea. But I thought it was a cool exercise for us to start to understand ourselves better and how we want to believe the world exists around us, how we want to walk out each day out of our front doors and say, this is who I'm going to be every single day. Because consistency does matter. Consistency matters not just in our own lives, but in the world around us. And I think if we can all come up with these slogans where we understand ourselves and the things that we want for ourselves and the things that we want out of this life better, then it makes interacting with the world, with strangers, in relationships easier. It helps us know what we always want. It's no different than me being a single person and having to understand what I want from a partner, somebody who I want to spend my entire life with. You know, we always make these pros and con lists or write down characteristics of a future partner. Why don't we do that for ourselves? Why don't we understand who we are and what we want for ourselves better? I think that allows us to do what Dr. Harry Cohen talks about in this interview and in his book. It's how we can be better people in the world. Because when we don't understand how we're supposed to interact with the world, how the heck are we going to choose to be a better person every single day with the people around us that we're interacting with, strangers or not? So perhaps after this episode, sit for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be for very long, and try and come up with your slogan. I'm going to. I know what it should encompass, but what do I actually want it to say? Who is Morgan in the world of a slogan if I had to label myself as I'm walking out into the world? What do I hope people encounter every time that they have an experience with me? So the slogan exercise is something fun. It's something that I feel like can be a great journal entry for anyone. As I'm sitting here with my journal that I wrote in after this interview, this is kind of a journal entry, if you will, after Dr. Harry Cohen. And I think it's just an exercise that might be beneficial. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's so silly and so stupid, and maybe it's how I interact with the world and the way that I see things. And I thought, license plates, slogans. How does that change us as people? Am I a little bit crazy? Sure, absolutely. A little bit weird? Also, yes, absolutely. But I also think there's a benefit to it. It's no different than, if you recall back in an episode I did with Jared Houston, and we were talking about those Venn diagrams and how you find your center. This is a similar concept, but this might be able to give you some concrete words, a concrete basis to choose how you interact with the world. Because as much as we love to forget it, we do have an impact. Every single person in this world has an impact. They are impacting the world around them, the communities around them, every single day. But how do you do that with more strength, with more authenticity, that you just radiate kindness? And I believe that so much of that starts with understanding ourselves that much better. So take out your journals, your notebooks, your little notes app in your phone, whatever it may be, and come up with your slogan. Let me know what yours is. I love seeing them. And, you know, I might have to steal a combination of Kansas and Oregon's because I really loved both of those. So I'm going to be sitting here for a while coming up with my slogan, my life motto, my mantra, and hopefully you're able to come up with one too. And maybe, just maybe, even if there's 15 of us that decide to do this, that means there's 15 more people in the world who are choosing to interact in the world with more kindness.